Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Jacob Camenker is with us from Sporting News. We're going to touch on some AFC West quarterbacks as we begin here on the show. Jacob, great to see you again, and happy football season to you, and it's good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Glad to be here, and I'm glad for sure that it's football season with everything kicking up. I mean, we're going to have 2 weeks from Thursday, season opener. Doesn't get better than this, man.
Yeah, we're almost there. I was taking my son to school, explaining to him. He's like, why do they call it week 0? And I don't have a good explanation for that for college football. I tried, though. It took me a while. Okay, so how would we describe the career of Gardner Minshew? Like, what is the comp for Gardner Minshew? Because wherever he goes, Jacob, they love him, and he starts, and he gets a chance, and the teams are so happy with him, and then they never keep him. I mean, how many teams are we going to? Jacksonville, oh, we love Gardner Minshew. He's so good for us. He does all things the right way. We're going to make a big deal. They win some games. He's gone. Goes to Philadelphia, fills in for Jalen Hurts. Oh, my gosh, Gardner Minshew, thank goodness we had him. He's gone. Goes to Indianapolis. Same thing. Anthony Richardson gets hurt. Oh, we're so happy we have Gardner Minshew. He's gone again. And here go the Raiders. They're doing the same thing. I have nothing against Gardner Minshew. He's a fun guy, and he's a serviceable quarterback, I guess. But is this going to be his lot in life, Jacob, to just keep going to different teams to hold the fort down until they get a real quarterback? That's not fair to anybody.
Yeah, it doesn't seem fair to him. It almost seems like Ryan Fitzpatrick might be the best comp for him, where you look at him and you say, hey, this guy's a pretty good starter. We can get by with him. We can win some games. Minshew hasn't made any sort of playoff run as a starter, but you're never going to feel down and out when he's the quarterback. I mean, the Colts last year almost made it to the playoffs. They had a win and in game against the Texans late in the year. Minshew was pretty good for them. 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. At his best, Gardner Minshew is a guy who can distribute the ball downfield, make some plays, and avoid turnovers. He was better at the turnover avoidance early in his career, but at the end of the day, you have an accurate, solid quarterback who's going to put a respectable performance on the field pretty much every week. That's how he keeps getting these jobs, and that's why I think the Raiders probably made the right choice going with him. Aiden O'Connell might have more upside because he's the younger player, but I think if you look at this Raiders team and this offense that has Davante Adams, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, there's a lot of weapons there. So if you get a guy like Minshew who can distribute the ball to them, I think they're going to be pretty competitive, stay in a lot of games. Maybe they don't make the playoffs because the AFC is loaded, but hey, the Raiders, they're going to be a tough team to beat week in and week out as long as their defense continues to play well.
Yeah, my concern, Jacob, for this before we move on from the Raiders is like we've seen in the past with some teams. It happens in a lot of sports, by the way, that, Jacob, do you think the Raiders are that team in the next 2 weeks that looks internally at their team and says, you know what? We're not good enough to beat out some of the others. And like a thief in the night, they move out Davante Adams somewhere else. Every year this happens to some team. Some team just decides we've sold our tickets. We're ready to go, but we ain't good enough. I don't know. Like, I'm sort of sniffing that here, thinking that could happen. Maybe I'm crazy here, and Minshew will have Davante Adams, but I don't know if the Raiders are that team. But, Jacob, you know as well as I do, baseball, football, basketball, like the night before the season, sometimes teams do these deals.
Yeah, I wouldn't be super surprised to see the Raiders eventually move on from Davante Adams this year. I think maybe the trade deadline would be the one to watch. If they're sort of out of contention in the AFC, which, again, they're looking like maybe at best a wild card contender because of how many top tier teams there are, they might say, hey, we should move on from him. We have Jacoby Myers. We have Trey Tucker, who has a lot of upside. Let's give these guys a chance to prove themselves. But I think going into the season, they want to give Antonio Pierce kind of a chance to take command and say, hey, you have pretty good personnel here. We're going to let you have a shot at winning with this. And then if not, we'll try to kind of rebuild on the fly and get you up to a playoff contender before. But I think if the Raiders were in the NFC, we'd be feeling a lot better about them as a team because there just aren't as many wild card contenders there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, so Denver, there's natural optimism here. It's been fake optimism the last several years, as you know, Jacob. Just, a lot of different GMs, coaches, quarterbacks this year. It's all about Bo Nix. I will say that in the video highlights that I've seen of Nix, legitimately has looked good in the preseason. 205 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And certainly nobody is picking the Broncos to win. Most people feel like this is a transition / rebuild year for them. Should Broncos fans be optimistic with preseason stats? Because he would be the poster boy for the preseason this year.
I think you can look at his performance and say, yeah, there are certainly reasons to be encouraged. I mean, you look at how he's performed. He's been hyper accurate. He has the second best passer rating in the preseason so far, 116.7 among qualified passers. But the big thing you got to remember is it is still just the preseason. And you can just look at the quarterback ahead of him in passer rating as like a cautionary tale of how, hey, maybe performing well in the preseason doesn't mean anything. Mac Jones currently leads the league in preseason passer rating with a 120.7 rating. And look, I was a Mac Jones guy coming out of college, but it's no secret his time with the Patriots didn't exactly work out. And I'm not saying that Bo Nix is going to bust or anything here, but the competition level is going to kick up a little bit once the regular season actually starts. So I do think there will be growing pains, but I think you've seen kind of what you're going to see a little bit from Nix. He's an experienced 5-year college starter. He has good mobility, and he's a very accurate quarterback at his best. So maybe the Broncos' floor is a little higher than we thought it was with Nix there, because they still have Cortland Sutton, and Tim Patrick is there, and he's a rock-solid weapon when healthy. So I think if he can take advantage of those guys, they'll be in okay shape. But, you know, he's still a young quarterback on a team that has some holes on it. So I wouldn't get overly excited about this season if I'm a Broncos fan.
All right, so let's move to the Bears, Jacob. Any difference between the way Caleb Williams has played and Bo Nix? I know the Bears fans are excited about Williams, but, you know, long way to go, I guess. Another tale of preseason, I suppose.
Yes, I think there's reason to be optimistic and excited about Caleb Williams. He's shown off that high-end arm strength and arm talents and the mobility needed to make plays for this Bears offense. So I think you're seeing the ceiling that the Bears have. But again, there's going to be some growing pains. He's only completed 50% of his passes so far. So there may not be a true playoff contender right away. But next year, look out for them.
Would agree. All right, Jacob, great to catch up with you again. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Craig. Take care.